And just slowly inviting as you come back into the circle that we are all beautifully being our own unique radiance. And that each of us here in this divine, beautiful radiance gets to enact our own unique gifts, our own unique way in which we connect to our source, to our higher self, to the wisdom that comes through us. And a lot of the processes that we're going through right now doing this shadow work is really honestly a gift for us to dive deeper and deeper and deeper into just living life fully and completely in a state of love. That honestly, the more we dive into these shadows, that we're having an opportunity to fall in love with life, to fall in love with ourselves, to fall in love even with all of our challenges that we've gone through within this lifetime. So I know a lot of you have been working these together as a group consistently, class to class, and I know that there has been some that have missed a couple classes here and there, and that's completely beautiful and fine. It doesn't matter where we weave in with this process. All of the videos of the last classes are available. And just to note that there is a lot of editing that I do within them because a lot of the personal stuff that is shared, I keep it just for that particular moment in time. That's what the gift is, but the process is available through the videos. So just a gentle recap on all of this again is to have the opportunity to begin to again look at how we think we are being. And this is something we can always revisit again. How are we being to the world? And then what are we hiding maybe on the inside, the things that we think about ourselves, but that we are not fully and completely feeling as though we are comfortable letting everyone else know about. And that in one of our last classes, we then started to step into the perspective of what would it be like if we started to work with these golden shadows, these things within us that actually have kind of a love and a joy for the things we see in the world around us, but maybe don't completely recognize in ourselves, things we maybe admire in others. But that as we evolved this, that what we really started to do was start to then step into the energy of what would it be like to start to connect to our higher self. And if we imagined our higher self or whatever guide or guardian was being present with us in the moment, how would we then begin to accept the offer of stepping into their form, their consciousness, their body, seeing out through their eyes? So basically, essentially seeing out through their mask. And as we see out through their mask, what is it like being them? This is very much a high Buddhic practice of really stepping into higher venerated aspects of self, again, as mirrors of things we potentially have not fully awakened in ourselves, but we try it on, right? That's really what it is. Try a couple things on, feel how it feels, feel how real it feels for us, and feel potentially where our courage can get in to being in alignment with that. Now, we today are now going to continue with the last things that we worked on. So we did, through the group, go through, again, exactly working with the clearing process. And this clearing process is very, very powerful because this clearing process allows you to start to tap into how to work with your automatic writing skills. The main thing with that, and I invite you to revisit that if you weren't present at that or if you want to remember, but when we start to work with catching energy within and starting to listen to it, and then grabbing paper and letting the pencil, pen, or paper begin to be the physical way that we start to bring the energy out so it can be spoken, we many times begin to find ourselves tapping into tons of other wisdom we didn't even know was there. It's one of the most powerful ways to bring dream memories back. It's one of the most powerful ways to actually start to let your guides talk to you. And I know quite a few of you really took off with that as actually a very gifted skill that you have in this lifetime. So if you haven't done that much since that, that class that we did together, I would highly invite you to revisit that again. Please keep that going. It's very, very, very powerful. So now we ended our last session together with something called Tonglen. And so today I'm going to dive into this just a little bit deeper. And what I'm going to invite, so just for you to start to prepare, if you've had some experience with this, if you've been working with this in your own way, whether you've done it exactly as maybe some of the videos that were suggested, or some of the ways you've maybe potentially looked into Tonglen, or if you've modified it a little bit, I would just ask you, if there is something that's significant that comes up, that this is what we're going to share today, is the power of this practice. So Tonglen, again, is a very, very, very special practice. It is incredibly powerful. I had a little bit of a conversation with Joseph about it. And I was presenting the idea that I actually felt that Tonglen had the potential to be more powerful than the Ho'oponopono practice. He reacted a little bit to that one. It's like, I will have to check it out a little bit. Ho'oponopono, as we all know, we've worked with that practice a lot with each other in this group, and it is magnificent. It is actually so powerful and so magical. But I will just have to say, just from my personal perspective, as I've been working with Tonglen, and this breathing in, this literally feels like it transcends Ho'oponopono work, at least for me personally. So I will just keep this as my own perspective. So as we look at Tonglen, it's basically a blending of two words. It's Tong and then Len. Tong means to give or to send, and Len, L-E-N, is to receive or to take. So we're going to think of this. I'm just going to give you a new visualization of Tonglen, and just to invite you of this concept of an infinity symbol. But I'm actually going to amplify that, because I've actually modified the process a little bit through the guides, and it's an invitation. It's not a have to, but it's actually going to be the Trinity infinity wave. Okay. So it is going to be a little bit more of a tri-founder wave, as far as the give and the receive. But basically, Tonglen is a very powerful shadow integration technique. It is a practice that is about really honoring, from a neutral perspective, from a compassionate perspective, the suffering all beings, really truly being able to see the divine in all beings, especially those that have challenged us, those that we feel are kind of a resistance to us, or that we feel, uncomfortable with some of the situations we've had with them in our life. That there is a way that we can begin to sit within a meditative practice, where we can begin to take on higher mind, and through higher mind acknowledge the divine within that other being, regardless of whatever actions they have done. And then it's also really to also honor all pain and all suffering that others have gone through. Really respecting that even if someone feels as though they've challenged us, that in their reality and in their world and their perspective, that they too go through pain and suffering and challenges in this experience as well. So this is really a very powerful practice, that the more we do it, it begins to melt hardened energy around the heart. It begins to melt the walls. I like to think of all of the heart walls, if you've heard of the term heart walls, but say the walls, the chains, the padlocks, the blocks. I also think that a lot of us have put barbed wire fences around our hearts, but it's been like a fully battened down place many times. And this practice really begins to not challenge any of that, but it just starts to fizzle, fade, and just dissipate away. So it really has a beautiful energy of softening our heart, allowing our heart to soften in order to receive more love and to be more love. It has a very powerful influence for us for truly dissolving ego. And it really works in harmony with our declaration of surrendering our ego now to be in service to our higher self. And as our ego begins to soften, we find it easier and easier to just verbalize out loud many of the things that we have hidden on the inner mask of our shadow and begin to just let that go. It really does truly unlock just a natural capacity for love. So within this, it is truly a mindfulness practice. This is very much something that it's very, very simple. There's not a lot of complexity to it. The main vibration within it is that when you sit down to do this practice, is that there is no agenda. There is no outcome that you're looking for. You're not doing this because you're trying to change the person that drives you crazy. Let's be really clear about this. Let me just put that disclaimer out there. It's not to do when a coworker drives you absolutely crazy that day that you go breathe your Tonglen in and be like, I will make them be nice tomorrow. It's not how it works. That'd be great, right? We'd all just be like highly oxygenated beings changing the world around us. So as we get to kind of embody this energy, that it truly is about coming from our higher mind and our higher self. No agenda, no need for anything to be in a certain way. It's not about us really in any way, shape, or form. But remember, again, by doing it, it really truly does benefit us by that softening and that awakening of the heart. So the practice itself is going to center pretty much 100% around the breath, and it's about tapping into the rhythm of your breath. And so in the beginning, I will invite that infinity breath, and that infinity breath is just going to be between the in breath and the out breath. And what you want to do is kind of get yourself into a place where you're not trying to breathe in really deep and then you breathe out and then you have to do a catch-up breath to kind of acclimate your breath again. What you want to do is you want to get a very powerful rhythm to your breathing where it almost just takes you into a meditative state of being. Just real gentle roll, equal in breath into the heart, equal out breath out from the heart. Equal in breath into the heart, equal out breath out from the heart. And as you first start that is just your first practice, that you're really just coming fully and completely mindful within your breath and feeling your energy center and your mind calm down. Don't do this necessarily when you're in a hurry or when you have to do something else. Like if you really can, honestly, before bed is a beautiful time to do this. But just take a moment with some respect. It's not a long practice. So this is really about honorary, that mindfulness again, right? Putting down our cell phones, putting down our busy mind for a minute, and really doing the true thing that makes our heart happy in this life, which is moments that connect like this. Now, within this, we are going personally as a group through a practice, and it's a challenge. I'm going to say it's a challenge. I'd say it's an invitation, but honestly, if you're doing this, it's a challenge to actually do Tonglen for every year of your life in this life, for every age you've been in this life. And I'm just going to let you guys know I'm still in the womb. I started there and literally it took me backwards. So I haven't even made my way back in yet in order to move forward. I've been really working with a lot of different timelines as I'm moving back forward. So just to have so much gentleness and love with this process, that what would it be like if we could do this beautiful practice of breathing all of the pain, all of the suffering, all of the sadness, all of the trauma, all of the anger, all of the whatever off of, say, your 1-year-old self. And then do that for your 2-year-old self. And then do that for your 3-year-old self. And imagine creating these little diamond lights throughout your entire incarnational timeline of this lifetime as you move through. So that is our eventual goal with this process. Now, as you sit for this practice, if you are choosing to do this for another person, or whether you're doing it for one of your younger ages, you could, if you wanted to, have a picture of that person or yourself at that age to help you connect to it if you are more of a visual person. That's something I'm just adding because for all intents and purposes, this is just a visual process. And you want to imagine that that person or your younger self is just there in front of you and that you are connected as if you are facing each other heart to heart. And then as you sit in this, still breathing that rhythm, focus in on that being and begin to imagine that around them and in their heart is all of the pain and the suffering and the trauma and the challenges and maybe even the resistance. And I will even use the term that Pema Chodron used, which is she refers to it as all of the stuff that feels like suffocation or claustrophobia around them. And begin to just imagine all of that heaviness like a cloud of smoke around them. And once you've locked that in, now with the gentleness of love, you're going to imagine now connecting to all of that smoke and all of that energy that's around them and begin to breathe it into your heart. And then I'm going to invite you, this is the Trinity. Instead of just breathing it back to them as white light, I want you just to breathe it into your heart. And then on the exhale, imagine that you're exhaling it and you are breathing it out as pure white light or diamond light out of you. And that you are giving it to God, to source, the eternal all that is, to the eternal creator, to the love field, however you want to verbalize it. But just imagine that as you breathe it all in, that with love, you are giving it as a love gift, but you're transforming it into light and then gifting it as a love gift to Source Creator. And as you allow that love to pour out of your heart and give all of that, you're breathing in all of their pain and suffering. You're transforming it in your heart to like a white light or a double diamond sparkle. And you breathe it out as this luminous platinum or white energy and you gift it to God's source. And then from God's source, you would imagine that you're breathing it in. But this time I'm going to invite you to breathe it in and imagine that that being, whomever you're doing this energy work for, and if it's yourself, then you will still do this. But imagine that right behind or above that being is their higher self. And that you're going to, from God's source light, let now that white light flow from the Source Creator down into the heart of their higher self, and from their higher self, it pours into their heart. Okay? So it's really, again, an honorary energy that you're gifting, whatever you breathe off of them, that you gift it as a love gift to God. And that it's your honor to be able to be the catalyst of love for that energy and to gift it as a gift to love. And that as that love sprinkles down from Source Creator, that it flows through their higher self. And the guides, when they were showing this to me, they were saying that it's not necessary to see their higher self, but that it allows you to begin to, in even more of a way, take yourself out of the equation. That you are just honoring the divine in them. You are seeing their higher self. You are seeing their higher perspective. And you are allowing that the highest good is pouring back into them through their own higher self. Not how you're intending it, not how anything else is directing it, but that they are being their own catalyst of receiving that love back into their heart. Now, as you do this again, it starts to, it might take a minute for you to visualize the first process, but really no mind and no thoughts needed. You're just imagining they're in front of you, or your younger self is in front of you, and you just keep breathing that energy in. And I will tell you, in the very beginning, sometimes it feels like there's so much shadow, so much pain, so much smoke, or kind of black energy around this being that you are breathing in for. That sometimes it feels like when you breathe it in that it's so much black that it doesn't feel like it translates all the way out as white. Sometimes it feels smoky or gray, or like you're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot, and translating it. It's okay. However it is, don't get overwhelmed by it. Just allow yourself to gently keep offering it as a gift of love. And usually the moment you remember and just kind of say as a gift of love, even in your mind, it just, the double diamond energy of light just seems to activate naturally within all of it. And by the time it reaches God's source, it is this double diamond light. And so you're breathing it in, releasing it out. And that you can imagine it as a two-step fold, where that you're just imagining on the next breath it's pouring into them. And then you're breathing in again the shadow from them and breathing it out. And when you pour it into God's source, this is where it starts to become almost an instantaneous. Handing it off and is almost like an immediate, it goes into their higher self and it goes into them. You start to find their instant connection to the source field. So you just breathe it in and you release it with love, and then you just feel that love pour right into them, and then you go back into that breath and breathe in the shadow, the pain, whatever it is. And you do that for as long as you feel necessary. And this is my experience. But what it feels like for me is that I will be doing this, and it sometimes will feel heavy, sometimes like it's not moving, sometimes like it just feels really stagnant, sticky, or stuck. Sometimes it'll feel sometimes like their self like that aspect starts to even communicate, or even argue, or even start to kind of have an energy around as they're feeling that being noticed within. And then it just starts to move. It's just the more we just stay neutral, compassionate witness, stick with it. All of a sudden, this moment happens where all of a sudden it feels like they just go pop, and they just pop into a diamond light. And that is it. So be just present and mindful in it. And a moment comes where all of a sudden it just feels like it's complete. And then when it's complete and they radiate as a light, or they just feel really light, or it just feels complete to you, imagine them just with love being invited by their higher self to go off wherever they need to go. It's almost as though their higher self just kind of connects with them, and they dissipate out of your field. And that is it. And that is the complete process. And then at the end of that, you can just take some completion breaths to imagine just breathing through your body in any way, releasing it to source, and that it's just showering back as love as you just come into an honor and completion within that cycle. So again, it's a very, very simple process. It's very, very powerful, but it's really about breathing through this white light, or this double diamond heart light. And that as you are just beginning to rotate that, again, love does all the work. There's nothing you need to do. And that is why this practice has a potential to be probably one of the most powerful practices. I want to give a few examples for when this practice can be used, just to kind of plant some seeds in the mind. And if it gets too overwhelming with too many ideas, please just come back to this challenge that we have of allowing ourselves to go through our younger years. So some of the ways that we can work with this practice is to work with the loved ones in our home. So to connect, say, with your partner, with your loved one, and to offer this love practice of pulling the pain and suffering off of them. while allowing the source light to replenish them and to purify them from any of this burden that they have been holding. So it's a very beautiful practice to do if you have a friend or a loved one or a partner or a child or someone within your love radius that is going through something very challenging. This is a beautiful way that you might not have any other way to help them, that you can just sit and just do this love practice for them in order to begin to again clear take a visualization for a moment. At the end of this, we're really helping them to have a clearer connection to their higher self. And one of my favorite phrases in any kind of healing work and clearing work, so when we do the clearing process, one of the things we say at the very end, if we're clearing energy from another person, is what you seek from me is not what you're looking for. What you seek is with your higher self. This is a really powerful closing thing to say sometimes if you're doing a clearing process for something that's come up for you to be aware of within yourself. A very powerful thing sometimes to say within the other is that whatever it was that they were seeking from you or from within you, that you can just let them know whatever it was that you were seeking, I am not what you were really looking for. I am not what you are seeking or looking for. What you truly seek is within your higher self. So if we could just actually bubble that kind of energy up, and that any challenge you ever have, any challenge you have talking to a partner, any challenge you have dealing with a child, any challenge that you have dealing with coworkers or a boss or a situation, don't talk to the person. Talk to their higher self. Most times when we're having a conflict from another person, conflict is about miscommunication. We're on different channels. We're on different mind wavelengths. So therefore, that level of communication won't line up. So if you're really having a challenge with someone in your life or feeling as though it's just like you're butting heads or things aren't working, take the time to actually just completely step away from them completely and go have a conversation with their higher self. You will actually find much more mileage, much more energy moving after that within that experience. So aside from that, other very powerful times to do this practice is actually for a loved one who is in transition. So about to go through the death process, maybe they know they're about to transition, or maybe it's a sudden death, and so there hasn't been time for any preparation. The sooner that you can do this practice for them, the more that you are going to be working with the spirit while it is still closer to the form or closer to the earth plane. So you can assist that spirit from hanging on or holding on to any limiting beliefs, fears, or apprehensions. So again, a lot of times when a consciousness or a soul detaches from the body, either through a near death or through the death process, many times that consciousness is going to be holding whatever was going on in the earthbound realm. And so doing this practice for that very, very, very sacred time is actually a very high practice to do for the transition of life process. Now, this is also something that's very powerful to do for individuals in the past that you feel pain and trauma, or that you still feel sadness or regret, or any places that we're holding that victimizer energy within us. So this would be any time that we're holding energies of still maybe recounting a time in our life and we find ourselves still getting a little sarcastic or a little, joking when we talk about things because we still feel hurt inside, maybe to how we felt treated or how that situation went down. Those are very important times. So, one of the great suggestions, and when Pema Chodron shared her example of the Tonglen process, she suggested to do it with the mother. And you know, to start with the mother and go through that process. You know, find, you know, there can be times where what you want to do is find the ones that it's the hardest for you to wish goodwill to them, and then that would be a really beneficial way to utilize this practice, to really start to see that Buddha or that divine nature in all